Hello children, it's Mrs. Robertson here again. As you can see, we're here together for collective worship, and I'm going to start by saying, as we look at our candle together, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today's collective worship is going to help us think about becoming more resilient, helping us to keep on going even when we face difficulties. Do you remember last week I read you a story about the blind men of Industan and the elephant? Well, this week the story is about an animal, and it's a rhyming story. This animal is, as you can see, a hippopotamus, but the title is actually called the Hopopotamus. The author is Greg James and also Chris Smith. I wonder whether you can spot why this story is called the Hopopotamus. In a drought, in the dust, in a dry riverbed, a sad hippopotamus hung his grey head. He'd had nothing to drink since the start of this week. If he didn't find water, things could get quite bleak. The hippo was sad and the hippo was hot. But did he sit down and give in? Of course not. He remembered the words of a wise old giraffe that he'd heard long ago when he'd been a young calf. What do you think the old giraffe might say to the hippopotamus? There'll be times in your life when your road will be tough. You'll be tempted to say that you've had quite enough. There'll be people that try and convince you to stop, and you'll feel that you're just about ready to drop. But those are the times when you've got to keep moving. And with every small step, you will see things improving. Just point any way that seems hopeful to you. You move 1 foot forwards, then foot number 2. Then follow this up with your other 2 feet. Then return to foot 1 and repeat and repeat. Remember those words, said the wise old giraffe to our hero the hippo when he was a calf. Do you think the hippopotamus will listen to the giraffe? So the hippopotamus nodded his head. I'll keep plodding and see where I get to, he said. And he looked all around at the arid terrain and thought, will I ever find water again? Ahead, a high mountain rose up in the distance. It looked rocky and steep, but with hippo persistence, he decided he'd walk it till he'd overcome it, in case there were better things over the summit. First he came to a desert, which wasn't too handy. It was hard to walk through, rather slippy and sandy. A camel was sitting on top of a dune, and it told the hippo, you absolute loon. Turn around, go back, or you'll look like a chump. There's no water this way, except this in my hump. But the hippopotamus shook his head. Just a bit further, he boldly said. One step at a time he continued his journey, till he came to a jungle, dark, dank, green and ferny. The jungle was thick and the creepers were creepy, and a large sloth hung down from a branch looking sleepy. "This forest, it goes on for miles," he said, yawning. "Why don't you just hang here with me till the morning?" The hippo, though tempted, again shook his head. "Just a bit further," he bravely said. He plunged on through the jungle, and after a while he arrived at the mountain, the ultimate trial. Poor Hippo was tired, almost giving up hope, but one step at a time he pushed on up the slope. The mountain was rocky and strewn with huge boulders. Then stones hurt his feet, and the sun scorched his shoulders. A lion sat there on a rocky outcropping, and the lion called out, "You're much better off stopping." But the hippopotamus shook his head. "Just a bit further," he proudly said. His heart was so heavy, his feet were so sore, but he climbed and he climbed, one step, then one step more. And just when he was feeling ready to drop, he finally realised that he'd reached the top. And a splendid sight met his eyes when he looked down. A wide muddy waterhole, gleaming and brown. He could see lots of sploshing. Someone was there bathing. A hippo, a friend, and they seemed to be waving. And the hippopotamus nodded his head. "I'm glad that I chose to keep going," he said. A voice from behind called out. We were wrong. The lion, sloth and camel had all followed along, and the animals cried, "You're more brave than the lot of us. Hip, hip, hooray for the hippopotamus." Now I wonder, what part of the story was your favourite part? Have a little think to yourself. I think our hippo showed that he never ever gave up. He was persistence. He was hippo persistence. And this meant that he reached the watering hole and he actually found his friend. I wonder if you've got a story where you did something and you never gave up. Perhaps something really positive happened. Have a think. We've talked a lot about hope and our hippopotamus today. And having hope is also about giving encouragement. What would you have said to the hippopotamus to help him reach the watering hole? All of us can be hopopotamuses too. We can all try, and remember, we can keep on going and keep holding on to that hope. Having hope can help us all. We're going to finish our collective worship today with a prayer. Some of you might like to put your hands together or just close your eyes as you look at the picture on the screen. Dear Lord, thank you for those in my life who are easy to love. I thank you for family and friends who support me and comfort me in difficult times. Amen.